I woke up because something stepped on my tent. Not brushed against it, not wind, not an animal passing by. It pressed down slowly, like a full human foot, right above my head. I didn't move at first. I just lay there, staring into the dark fabric inches from my face, trying to convince myself I was imagining it. The forest had been quiet all night. Too quiet. No insects. No wind. Just silence thick enough to feel. Then it happened again. Another step. Heavier this time. The nylon dipped inward, pushing closer to my face before lifting again. Someone was standing on my tent. My chest tightened. I reached for my phone beside my sleeping bag, careful not to make noise. The screen lit up the inside of the tent in a dim blue glow. 凌晨2点17分. Another step. This time it shifted from above my head to my left side. They were walking, slowly, around me. I held my breath. I wasn't at a campsite. That's the thing. I had driven deep into a forest trail, miles away from any marked area. No other cars. No people. I made sure of that. I wanted to be alone. Now I wasn't. The footsteps stopped. Complete silence again. I told myself it could be a hiker. Maybe someone lost. Maybe drunk. Maybe. A hand pressed down on the tent. Flat. Firm. Right where my face was. I froze. The fingers dragged slowly across the fabric. As if feeling for something inside. My throat went dry. I turned off my phone screen instantly, plunging myself back into darkness. The hand stayed there. Not moving. Just resting. Then it slowly lifted away. I heard a soft crunch of leaves as whoever it was stepped back. Then nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Gone. I stayed completely still for what felt like an hour. My ears strained for any sound. Every nerve in my body was screaming at me not to unzip that tent. But I had to know. Slowly, carefully. I reached for the zipper. I pulled it down just an inch. Cold air slipped inside. I waited. Nothing. Another inch. Still nothing. I opened it just enough to peek out. The forest was pitch black. My eyes struggled to adjust. The trees stood like tall shadows, unmoving. My small campfire had died hours ago, leaving only faint embers. No one there. I unzipped it a bit more and leaned out, scanning the ground. That's when I saw the footprints. Bare feet. Right next to my tent. Deep impressions in the dirt, like the person was heavy. They circled the tent completely. And then they stopped. Right at the entrance. Facing me. My stomach dropped. Because there were no footprints leading away. None. Just circles around my tent, and then nothing. Like whoever it was had just disappeared. I zipped the tent shut immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I fumbled with the zipper. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe the ground was too hard to show prints beyond that point. Maybe I just couldn't see them. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. I didn't sleep after that. I sat there in the dark, holding my pocket knife, listening. Minutes passed. Then hours. And just when I thought maybe it was over, I heard breathing. Right outside the tent. Slow. Deep. Controlled. Not animal breathing. Human. It was coming from directly behind me now. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. The sound was so close it felt like it was right against the fabric, inches from my back. Then a whisper. So quiet I almost missed it. I know you're awake. My entire body went cold. I stopped breathing completely. The voice was calm. Normal. Like someone talking to a friend. I can hear your heart. A long pause followed. Then the sound of fingers dragging lightly across the back of the tent. I've been watching you since you got here. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't move. I didn't respond. I didn't even blink. Another pause. Then footsteps. Slowly walking away. This time, I heard them clearly. Each step crunching leaves, moving farther and farther, until silence returned. As soon as the sky started to lighten, I got out of there. I didn't pack properly. I just stuffed everything into my bag, left some gear behind, and ran to my car. When I reached it, I froze. There were handprints on the windows. Smudged. Dirty. All over the glass. And on the driver's side door, scratched into the dust with a finger, was a sentence. I didn't open it, because you didn't invite me. I didn't go back. I reported it later, but they never found anyone. No camps nearby. No missing persons. No signs of anyone living out there. Nothing. But I know what I heard. And sometimes when I try to sleep, I still hear that breathing. Right behind me. I woke up because something was breathing right outside my tent. Slow, heavy, and too close. At first I thought it was part of a dream. That half-awake state where sounds bleed into your head and don't make sense. But then I heard it again, a deep inhale, followed by a long, shaky exhale. Like someone trying to stay quiet. I didn't move. The fire had died hours ago. Everything was dark. No moon. No light. Just the thin nylon of my tent between me and whatever was out there. I held my breath. The sound stopped. For a moment there was nothing. No wind. No insects. Not even the usual forest noise. Just silence, thick and unnatural. Then crunch. A slow, deliberate step. Not an animal. Too controlled. Another step circling. I felt it moving around my tent. Careful. Testing. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure it could hear it. I reached slowly for my flashlight, trying not to make a sound. My fingers shook as I wrapped them around it. Another step. Closer this time. Then something brushed against the side of the tent. I froze. The fabric pressed inward slightly, like someone leaning in. I could see the faint outline of it. A shape. Human-sized. I clicked the flashlight on. The beam hit the tent wall, but there was nothing there. No shadow. No figure. Just empty fabric. I stayed still, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a deer. Maybe my mind was exaggerating things. I had hiked deep into the forest, far from any trails. It made sense to hear things. But animals don't breathe like that. And they don't walk in slow circles. I kept the flashlight on, pointing at the tent wall. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Eventually, exhaustion pulled me back down. My eyes closed, even though I didn't want them to. I don't know how long I slept. But when I woke up again, it was worse. This time, the sound wasn't outside. It was right behind me. Breathing, inside the tent. Hot. Wet. Close to my neck. I couldn't move. My whole body locked up. I could feel it. The warmth. The presence. Someone right there. My mind raced. I knew I had zipped the tent shut. I checked it twice before sleeping. There was no way anyone could have gotten in without waking me. But the breathing continued, steady, controlled, like it was watching me. Waiting. Slowly. Painfully slowly. I turned my head. The flashlight was still in my hand. I clicked it on and swung it behind me. Nothing. Empty space. My backpack. My boots. That's it. No one there. But the zipper, it was open. Just a few inches. I stared at it, my stomach twisting. I knew I had closed it. I sat up quickly, scanning every corner of the tent. Nothing. No movement. No sound. I grabbed my knife and crawled to the entrance. My hands trembled as I pulled the zipper open the rest of the way and stepped outside. The forest was dead silent. No wind. No animals. Just darkness stretching in every direction. I turned slowly, shining the flashlight around. Trees. Rocks. Shadows. Then I saw it. Footprints. Right next to my tent. Barefoot. Deep impressions in the dirt. One after another. Circling the tent, over and over again. I followed them with the light, my chest tightening. They didn't come from anywhere. They just started there. No trail leading in. No trail leading out. Just a perfect circle around my tent. My breathing got faster. My mind couldn't process it. And then, I noticed something else. Another set of prints. Smaller. Inside the first circle. Closer to the tent. I swallowed hard and stepped back. That's when I saw the final detail. One single footprint. Right at the entrance of my tent. Facing inward. Not outside. Inside. My stomach dropped. Because that meant, whatever made it, had already been in there with me. And I never heard it leave. I heard my own footsteps behind me, even when I stopped walking. At first I told myself it was just an echo, rocks shifting, maybe my backpack creaking. But when I froze completely, holding my breath, the footsteps didn't stop. They took 2 more steps, slow, deliberate, then silence. I was hiking alone in a remote mountain trail I'd found on an old forum. It wasn't on any official map. That should have been my first warning. The place was deep in the hills, far from any town. No signal. No people. Just miles of dense forest and narrow dirt paths cutting through it. I liked that kind of isolation, or at least I thought I did. It was late afternoon when things started feeling wrong. The trail had been quiet all day. No birds. No insects. Just wind brushing through the trees. Even that felt muted somehow. Then I noticed footprints. Not mine. They were fresh. Deep. Like someone heavy had passed through recently. The strange part, they were going the same direction as me, but I hadn't seen anyone all day. I knelt down to look closer. Boot prints. Large. Uneven spacing. Like the person was walking slowly. Dragging one foot slightly. I stood up quickly and looked around. Nothing. Just trees, and that heavy silence. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe someone had passed earlier. Maybe they were far ahead. So I kept walking. About 10 minutes later I heard it for the first time. A branch snapping. Somewhere behind me. I turned around fast. Nothing there. No movement. No sound after that. Just my heart beating louder than it should. I waited, listening. That's when I heard breathing. Faint, slow, uneven. Not mine. It was coming from deeper in the trees just off the trail. I stepped back, trying to see through the shadows, but the forest was too dense. Too dark. Hello. I called out. No answer. The breathing stopped instantly. Like whoever it was, didn't want to be heard. I started walking faster. Not running, just faster. Trying to stay calm. But then the footsteps came again. Behind me. Matching my pace. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I stopped. They stopped. I turned. Nothing. I felt this cold weight settle in my chest. Someone was following me. And they didn't want me to see them. I decided to leave the trail. It felt safer to move unpredictably, maybe lose whoever it was. I stepped off into the forest, pushing through branches, heading downhill. The ground was uneven, covered in leaves and loose rocks. Hard to move fast. But I kept going. After a minute, I heard it again. Closer now. The same dragging step. They had followed me off the trail. I wasn't imagining it anymore. I started running. Branches scratched my arms. My boots slipped on the slope. I nearly fell twice. Behind me, the footsteps sped up too. Still uneven, but faster. Closer. Way too close. I could hear their breathing now. Loud. Wet. Right behind me. I tripped. Hard. Hit the ground and slid a few feet down before stopping. Pain shot through my knee. I scrambled to turn around. And that's when I saw him. He was standing between the trees, maybe 10 feet away. Tall. Too tall. Wearing old, dirty hiking clothes. One pant leg torn, dragging. That's why the footsteps sounded uneven. His face. I wish I hadn't seen it. His mouth was slightly open, like he'd been breathing through it for hours. Lips dry. Cracked. But his eyes. They were locked on me. Not blinking. Not moving. Just staring. "Hey. I think I'm lost," I said, my voice shaking. He didn't respond. Didn't even react. Just stood there, watching me. Then, slowly, he tilted his head. Like he was studying me. I pushed myself up, trying to stay calm. "Listen, I don't want any trouble. I'll just go back the other way." Still nothing. Then he took a step forward. Drag step. That sound again. My stomach dropped. I backed away. He took another step. Then another. Faster now. I turned and ran. I didn't look back. I just ran. Through trees. Over rocks. Down the slope. I could hear him chasing me now. Louder. Closer. That dragging step hitting the ground over and over again. He wasn't tired. He wasn't slowing down. Then suddenly, I burst out onto the trail again. I didn't even realize I had looped back. I sprinted down it as fast as I could, not caring where it led. The forest started thinning. Light appeared ahead. I saw the road. I ran straight onto it, gasping for air, my legs shaking. And then I stopped. Because there was a car parked there. An old, rusted SUV. Driver's door open. I looked around. No one in sight. No movement. No sound. The forest behind me, completely still. Too still. Then I noticed something on the ground. Next to the car. Footprints. Fresh. Dragging. Leading from the forest, straight to the driver's side door. And that's when I saw it. On the inside of the door. Scratched into the metal. Deep and uneven. One word. Repeated over and over again. Run. I didn't wait. I got in the car. Keys were still in the ignition. I didn't think about it. I just started it and drove. As fast as I could. I didn't stop until I reached the nearest town. When I finally looked in the rearview mirror, I saw him. Standing in the middle of the road, far behind. Perfectly still. Watching. The next day I reported everything. The police went back to check the area. They found the car. Still parked. Engine cold. Keys gone. But there was no sign of the man. No tracks. No evidence anyone had been there. Except for one thing. They found my footprints. Leading off the trail. Into the forest. And right beside them. Another set. Following me the whole way. Then stopping. Exactly where I fell. I woke up to the sound of slow footsteps circling my cabin. Crunch, pause, crunch, like someone was dragging their feet through the gravel just outside my window. At first I thought I was dreaming. Then I heard my own name. Not shouted, not whispered, but spoken calmly, like someone standing right outside knew I was awake. "Come out." I froze. I had rented that cabin alone, deep in the mountains, miles away from the nearest road. No signal. No neighbors. Just trees, endless trees. The owner had told me it was quiet. Peaceful. He didn't mention anything about footsteps at 2:30 in the morning. I stayed completely still, barely breathing. My eyes were fixed on the window across the room. The curtain was thin. I could see faint shadows moving behind it. Something or someone was out there. Crunch, crunch. The footsteps moved slowly along the side of the cabin. Then they stopped right outside the front door. Silence. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I reached for my phone. No signal. Battery at 19%. Then, a soft knock. 3 taps. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just deliberate. I didn't move. Another 3 taps. Slightly harder this time. Then the voice again, closer now. I know you're in there. It sounded like a man. Calm. Almost polite. That made it worse. I grabbed the kitchen knife I had left on the counter earlier. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Please, open the door. Something about the way he said please didn't sound right. It didn't sound like a request, it sounded like a test. I stayed silent. Minutes passed. Or maybe seconds. I couldn't tell anymore. Then I heard footsteps again, but this time they weren't outside. They were on the porch. Wood creaked under weight. Then, a slow dragging sound across the door. Like fingers or nails. I backed away. Don't make me come in, he said softly. My chest tightened. I knew the door was locked. I had checked it twice before going to bed. Windows too. Then I heard something that made my stomach drop. The sound of metal gently turning. The doorknob. Slowly. I stared at it from across the room. It moved, just slightly. Once. Twice. Then it stopped. Silence again. I realized something that didn't make sense. There was no light outside. No car. No footsteps leading up earlier. No reason for anyone to be here. And yet, he knew my name. I crept backward toward the bedroom, never taking my eyes off the door. I needed to hide. Or find another way out. But as I stepped into the hallway, I froze. The bedroom door was open. I was sure I had closed it before sleeping. The darkness inside felt wrong. Too still. Then I heard breathing. Inside the room. Slow, steady, like someone waiting patiently. I stopped breathing myself. The front door still locked. The windows untouched. But somehow, he was already inside. I turned slowly, every muscle screaming at me to run, but I couldn't move. From the darkness of the bedroom, the same voice came again, closer than before. You should have opened the door. I ran. I didn't think. I didn't grab anything. I just ran straight for the front door, unlocked it and threw it open. Cold air hit my face. The forest was pitch black. I sprinted into it barefoot, branches cutting into my skin, gravel tearing my feet apart. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. But I could hear him. Behind me. Not running. Walking. Crunch, pause, crunch. Calm. Unhurried. Like he knew I wasn't getting away. I kept running until I hit the dirt road miles down. By the time I found help I could barely speak. They went back to the cabin at sunrise. Police. The owner. A few locals. The door was still open. Inside, everything looked normal. Except for one thing. On the bedroom floor, right where the darkness had been, there were deep scratch marks. Long, uneven. Carved into the wood. And next to them, footprints. Barefoot. Mine, leading out. And another set. Leading deeper into the cabin. Not out. The zipper of my tent moved, slowly from the outside. I was wide awake. I hadn't made a sound. And whoever was out there knew exactly where I was. I froze. My breath caught in my throat, like even the smallest noise might give me away. The forest around me had gone completely silent. No insects. No wind. Just nothing. Then it stopped. The zipper didn't open all the way. Just a few inches, then it slid back up again. I stayed perfectly still for what felt like hours. My heart was pounding so loud I was sure whoever was out there could hear it through the fabric. I had come out here alone. That was my first mistake. It was supposed to be a simple overnight camping trip. I drove up into the mountains, far from any towns, and hiked a couple miles off the main trail. I wanted isolation, quiet. A break from everything. By the time I set up my tent, the sun was already dipping behind the trees. I remember thinking how dark it got, way too fast. But I ignored it. Made a small fire, ate some canned food, and listened to the forest settle into night. That's when I heard the first sound. Footsteps. Not animals. Not random. Slow, steady, deliberate. I sat up and listened. They stopped immediately. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe I imagined it. The woods mess with your head like that. But then it happened again. A few minutes later. Closer this time. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out of the tent. I swept the beam across the trees, the ground, the bushes. Nothing. Hello. I called out, trying to sound confident. No answer. Just silence. Pressing in from all sides. I stayed outside for a while listening, but eventually I convinced myself it was just nerves. Maybe another camper nearby. Maybe an animal moving weirdly. I went back inside and zipped the tent shut. That's when things started getting worse. I lay there in the dark, staring at the thin fabric above me. Every little sound felt amplified. My ears were straining, trying to pick up anything unusual. Then I heard breathing. Soft, slow, right outside the tent. I stopped breathing myself just to be sure. It was still there. Inhale. Exhale. Too steady to be an animal. Too controlled. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just lay there frozen as the sound drifted slowly around the tent, like whoever it was circling me. Then it stopped right near my head. And stayed there. I could feel it. Someone standing just inches away from the fabric. Watching. Listening. I don't know how long I stayed like that. 10 minutes. Maybe an hour. Time didn't feel real anymore. Eventually, the breathing faded. The footsteps returned. Moving away. I didn't sleep at all that night. At some point, exhaustion must have taken over because the next thing I remember was waking up to sunlight. For a second, everything felt normal again. Birds chirping. Light filtering through the trees. I almost laughed at myself. Until I unzipped the tent. Right in front of the entrance were footprints. Human. Deep impressions in the dirt. Clear. Fresh. They circled the tent multiple times. Back and forth. Back and forth, like whoever made them had been pacing. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I found when I followed them. They didn't lead away into the forest. They led to a tree about 20 feet from my tent. And behind that tree was a small clearing I hadn't noticed the night before. In that clearing, there was another camp. Not like mine. No tent. No gear neatly packed. Just a dirty sleeping bag on the ground, empty food wrappers, and a pile of things that made my stomach drop. Clothes. Different sizes. Different styles. Some torn. Some stained. And right on top was a backpack. My backpack. The one I had left inside my tent overnight. I ran back immediately. The zipper, the one I was sure I had closed all the way. It was slightly open. Just a few inches. Exactly like I remembered. I grabbed my stuff and didn't stop moving. I didn't care about packing properly. I just shoved everything together and started running back toward the trail. The whole time, I had this feeling. Like I was being watched again. Closer this time. Following. I could hear it behind me, faint but real. Footsteps. Matching mine. Every time I sped up, they sped up. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just kept going until I finally reached my car. I jumped in, locked the doors, and drove without looking back. I didn't stop until I reached the nearest town. Later, when I calmed down enough to check my things, I noticed something I hadn't seen before. Inside my bag at the very bottom, there was a piece of paper. Folded. Dirty. Not mine. My hands were shaking when I opened it. There were only 3 words written on it. You slept heavy. The first knock came from inside the wall, not the door. I froze with my hands still on the cabin's latch. The sound came again, 3 slow taps. Like someone testing the wood from the other side. But there was no other side. Just solid timber. And the forest behind it. I should have left right then. But I didn't. I had driven 6 hours into the mountains to get away from everything. No signal. No people. Just an old rental cabin sitting alone between trees that blocked out most of the sky. The owner had warned me the place was rough around the edges, but I figured that meant creaky floors and maybe a bad heater. Not, whatever that was. I told myself it was just wood settling. Cabins do that. Temperature changes. Moisture. Normal stuff. Still. I hesitated before opening the door. Inside, the air smelled stale. Like damp wood and something faintly sour. The furniture was basic. A small bed. A table. A dusty couch. No decorations. No photos. Just a place meant for staying, not living. I shut the door behind me. Locked it. That's when I heard it again. 3 taps. But this time from a different wall. I stood there listening hard. My chest felt tight. The silence between the sounds was worse than the noise itself. It stretched too long, like something was waiting for me to relax. I walked over slowly and pressed my ear against the wall. Nothing. Just my own breathing, too loud. I laughed a little. Nervous. It's nothing, I said out loud just to break the silence. I unpacked my bag. Tried to ignore it. The sun was already dropping behind the trees, and shadows started filling the cabin faster than I expected. By the time I sat down, it was almost completely dark outside. That's when I heard footsteps. Not inside. Outside. Slow. Careful. Crunching lightly over gravel. I turned off the light without thinking. My heart started pounding. I don't know why I did that. Maybe instinct. Maybe I didn't want whoever it was to know I was inside. The footsteps stopped. Right outside the door. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Then, a soft scrape. Like fingers dragging across the wood. My skin went cold. Hello. I called out, trying to sound normal. No answer. Just silence again. I waited a full minute before I moved. Slowly, I stepped toward the window and peeked through the edge of the curtain. Nothing. No one. Just trees and darkness. I told myself it was probably some hiker. Maybe they saw the cabin and got curious. Maybe they left. But something felt wrong. Too quiet. I turned the light back on. Locked the windows. Checked the door again. I even grabbed a kitchen knife and kept it on the table just in case. Hours passed like that. Sitting. Listening. Every small sound felt bigger. The wind. The wood creaking. My own breathing. Then, it started again. 3 taps. This time from the ceiling. I looked up slowly. The sound came again, dragging now. Like something shifting above me. There shouldn't be anything up there. No attic access. Just a low roof. I stood up, my legs shaking. I didn't even realize I had picked up the knife until I saw it in my hand. Who's there? I said. Silence. Then, a heavy thud. Right above me. Dust fell from the ceiling. I backed away fast. My eyes locked on that spot. Another thud. Closer to the edge now. Moving. Whatever was up there was crawling. I ran to the door. Unlocked it. Threw it open. Cold air hit my face. The forest looked darker than before, thicker somehow. Like the trees had moved closer. I stepped outside. And that's when I heard it behind me. The door. slowly creaking shut. I spun around. I know I left it wide open. But it was closing inch by inch. I rushed forward and yanked it open again. Inside, everything looked the same. Except the knife. It wasn't on the table anymore. It was on the floor. Near the wall. The same wall where I first heard the tapping. My stomach dropped. I didn't remember dropping it. I didn't remember putting it there. I stepped closer slowly. Like it might move again. That's when I saw it. A thin line in the wood. A cut. Fresh. Right where the knife was pointing. I leaned in, my heart pounding in my ears. The line wasn't random. It was shaped. Letters. Someone had carved something into the wall. I crouched down, squinting to read it in the dim light. You left the door open. My breath caught. I felt it before I heard it. Breathing. Right behind me. Slow. Close. Too close. I turned around. And the door slammed shut. Hard. The light flickered once, then went out. I stood there in complete darkness. And the breathing wasn't behind me anymore. It was in front of me. Right where the door was. Blocking it. I stumbled back, hitting the wall. My hands searched blindly, shaking. Hey, listen, I don't want any trouble, I said, my voice breaking. No response. Just that breathing. Steady. Calm. Like it wasn't afraid at all. Then I heard the sound I will never forget. The lock. Turning. From the inside. I didn't touch it. I swear I didn't. Something else did. And then silence. No breathing. No footsteps. Nothing. I stood there for what felt like hours before I finally found the courage to move. I fumbled for my phone. Turned on the flashlight. The door was still locked. The room was empty. No one there. No sign of anyone ever being there. Except the wall. The message had changed. The words were deeper now. Clearer. And there was more. Underneath the first line, freshly carved, still splintering at the edges. I didn't leave. I woke up because something was breathing right outside my tent. Slow, heavy, like it was trying not to be heard. At first I thought it was part of a dream, until the zipper near my face moved, just a little from the outside. I didn't move. I couldn't. I just lay there, eyes open in the dark, listening. The forest had gone completely silent. No insects. No wind. Nothing. Just that breathing, and the faint sound of something shifting its weight in the dirt. I was camping alone, about 6 hours deep into the mountains. No signal. No marked trails nearby. I had picked the spot because it felt hidden, peaceful, isolated. Now it felt like a mistake. The breathing stopped. For a moment there was nothing. Then I heard it, footsteps. Slow. Careful. Circling my tent. Crunch, pause, crunch. Whoever or whatever it was, they were trying to stay quiet. But dry leaves don't lie. I could track every step. It moved around me once, then again, like it was studying the tent. I reached slowly for my phone. No signal, obviously. The screen lit up the inside of the tent for a second, and I instantly regretted it. What if they saw that? I turned it off quickly and held my breath. The footsteps stopped again. Right behind my head this time. I could feel it, the presence. Just inches away, separated by a thin layer of fabric. Then, a faint scratch. Not claws. Not an animal. Fingernails. Dragging slowly across the tent wall, right behind my ear. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. Hey! A voice whispered. Soft. Human. Too close. I froze. Hey! I know you're awake. My heart started pounding so loudly I was sure they could hear it. The voice sounded normal. Calm. Almost friendly. But something about it felt wrong, like it didn't belong out here. I saw your light, it said. You shouldn't use your phone out here, it's not safe. I didn't answer. I didn't even breathe. A long silence followed. Then, footsteps again. Moving away. Crunch, crunch. Fading into the trees. I waited. 1 minute, 5, maybe 10. Nothing. No breathing. No voice. No footsteps. Just the forest slowly coming back to life. Insects chirping again. Distant wind through branches. I told myself it was just some random hiker. Maybe someone messing around. Maybe they were warning me. But something didn't sit right. No gear sounds. No backpack. No flashlight. No reason to be out here this far at this hour. I didn't sleep after that. I just sat there back against the tent wall, holding my pocket knife, staring into the dark. Hours passed. Eventually, I must have drifted off. Because when I opened my eyes again, it was morning. Sunlight filtered through the trees. Birds were loud again. Everything looked normal. For a moment I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Until I stepped outside. The ground around my tent was covered in footprints. Barefoot. Deep impressions in the dirt, circling the tent over and over again. My stomach dropped. They were fresh. I followed them with my eyes, expecting them to lead back into the forest. But they didn't. They stopped, right in front of my tent entrance. As if whoever made them had just stood there, watching me. For a long time. I packed my stuff as fast as I could, hands shaking the entire time. I didn't even bother eating. I just wanted to get out. As I was stuffing my sleeping bag into my pack, I noticed something inside the tent. At the corner, near where my head had been. A small, folded piece of paper. I knew I didn't bring any paper like that. My chest tightened as I picked it up. It was damp, like it had been held in someone's mouth or sweaty hands. I unfolded it slowly. There were only 5 words written inside. In messy, uneven handwriting. I waited until you slept. I didn't look around again. I didn't check the trees. I just ran. The footsteps didn't stop when I stopped walking. They stopped when I turned around. And then, they started again, closer. I remember checking my watch. 11:47 p.m. I had been hiking longer than planned. Way longer. The trail was supposed to be simple. A straight loop through the forest. I'd done similar ones before. But I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere, because nothing looked familiar anymore. No signs. No markers. Just trees. Endless trees. My phone had no signal. Battery at 12%. I told myself to stay calm. Find a place to camp. Wait for morning. So I did. I found a small clearing and set up my tent. It wasn't perfect, but it was the only open space I could find. The forest around me felt tight. Like it was pressing in. I lit a small fire. Ate a protein bar. Drank some water. And then, I heard it. A single step. Somewhere behind me. I froze. I turned slowly, expecting maybe a deer. Or some animal. But there was nothing. Just darkness. I stared for a while. Listened. Nothing again. I told myself I was being paranoid. Forests make noises. Things move. It's normal. So I zipped up my tent and tried to sleep. That's when it started again. Step. Pause. Step. Not random. Not like an animal. It sounded careful. Like someone was walking, trying not to be heard. My chest tightened. I held my breath. The footsteps circled the tent. Slow. Patient. Crunch, crunch. I could hear the leaves shifting. Right outside. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on. The beam cut through the thin fabric of the tent. Hello. I called out. Silence. The footsteps stopped. I waited. Nothing. After a minute, I unzipped the tent just a little and shined the light out. Empty. No movement. No sound. But something felt off. The ground, it looked disturbed. Like something had been walking there. In circles. Around me. I zipped the tent shut again. My hands were shaking now. I stayed awake. Listening. Minutes passed. Maybe an hour. Then. A whisper of movement. Right next to my head. I didn't breathe. Something was there. I could hear it. Breathing. Slow, steady, controlled. Not loud. Not animal-like. Human. I clenched my jaw and slowly turned my head toward the sound. The tent wall was inches from my face. And through the thin fabric, I saw a shape. A shadow. A head. Standing right outside. Not moving. Just watching. I couldn't see details. Just the outline. But I knew. Someone was there. I grabbed my knife. My hand felt numb. "Go away," I whispered. The breathing stopped. Complete silence. Then suddenly, a hand pressed against the tent. Right where my face was. Hard. The fabric stretched inward. I flinched back. The hand stayed there. Still. Then slowly it dragged downward, leaving a faint streak of dirt across the fabric. I scrambled backward, hitting the other side of the tent. My heart was pounding so loud I thought it would give me away. "Please," I muttered. "Just go." No response. Then the footsteps again. Walking away. Slowly. Crunch, crunch, crunch. I didn't sleep after that. I sat there frozen until the sky started to lighten. As soon as I could see, I rushed out of the tent. The fire was dead. The forest looked normal. For a second I thought maybe I imagined everything. Until I looked at the ground. Footprints. Barefoot. Dozens of them. Circling the tent. Over and over again. But that wasn't the worst part. They didn't come from anywhere. And they didn't go anywhere. Just circles. Like whoever was out there had been walking around me all night. And never left. I packed everything as fast as I could and started walking. I didn't care where. Just away. After about 10 minutes I found the trail again. Clear. Obvious. Like it had been there the whole time. I followed it back to the parking area. My car was still there. But something made me stop before getting in. The dust on the back window. It had been disturbed. Like someone had wiped it. I stepped closer. There were words written on it. Messy. Uneven. Like someone wasn't used to writing. I stared at it for a long time before it finally registered. "I know you're awake." The first thing I heard wasn't the footsteps, it was my own name. Clear. Close. Whispered right behind me. I turned so fast I almost slipped off the trail, but there was no one there. Just trees, and the sound of something quickly moving away through the brush. I had started the hike around 3 p.m. Just a solo trip through a quiet mountain trail I'd found online. It wasn't popular. No marked signs. No other cars when I parked. That's exactly why I chose it. I like being alone out there. No noise. No people. Just the sound of wind and my boots hitting dirt. At least, that's what I expected. About an hour in, I started noticing small things. Nothing major at first. A snapped branch behind me. A rock rolling slightly, like it had been disturbed. I'd stop walking, and everything would go dead silent. No birds. No insects. Just silence. Then I'd start moving again, and a few seconds later, something behind me would move too. At first I told myself it was an animal. Maybe a deer. Maybe something smaller. But animals don't match your pace like that. Every time I slowed down, it slowed down. Every time I stopped, it stopped. And when I turned around, nothing. I decided to ignore it. Bad idea. The trail started getting narrower. Trees closer together. The light fading quicker than it should have. That's when I heard the breathing. Not mine. Slow. Heavy. Like someone trying to stay quiet but failing. Right behind me. I froze. The breathing stopped. I didn't turn around this time. I don't know why, but something in my gut told me not to. Instead, I just stood there, staring straight ahead, listening. Nothing. Then, a single footstep. Right behind my left heel. Close enough that I felt the vibration in the ground. I ran. I didn't care about the trail anymore. I just ran forward, branches hitting my face, roots catching my feet. Behind me, the footsteps exploded. Fast. Aggressive. Crashing through the forest like whoever it was didn't care about being quiet anymore. They were chasing me. And they were faster. I could hear them gaining. The breathing louder now. Almost excited. I glanced back once. Just for a second. I wish I hadn't. It was a man. Normal looking, at first glance. But he was smiling. Wide. Too wide. And he wasn't even looking at where he was stepping. Just at me. I pushed harder. My lungs burning. Legs shaking. Finally, I saw the trail split. I took the left path without thinking. Big mistake. The ground suddenly dropped beneath me. I slid down a steep slope, crashing into dirt and rocks, rolling until I hit something hard. A wall. No, not a wall. A pit. Man-made. Deep. Narrow. Hidden. I scrambled up, trying to climb, but the dirt just crumbled under my hands. Above me, I heard footsteps stop. Then silence. I held my breath, hoping maybe, just maybe, he lost me. Then his face appeared at the edge. Looking down. Still smiling. He didn't say anything. He just stared. Minutes passed. Maybe longer. Then, he crouched down and slowly, carefully, started placing branches over the top of the pit. One by one. Covering it. Like it had been before. Like I was just another thing to hide. I screamed. I begged. I threw rocks. He didn't react. Just kept working, calm, focused. When he was done, only small gaps of light came through. His face disappeared. And then, I heard his footsteps walking away. Slow. Relaxed. Like he had done this before. I don't know how long I was down there. Hours. Maybe the whole night. My phone had no signal. My voice gave out from screaming. At some point, I stopped trying. I just sat there in the dark listening. And then, late into the night, I heard footsteps again. Coming back. Slow. Careful. Stopping right above me. I held my breath. Hoping, praying, it wasn't him again. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right through the branches. Right above my head. Don't worry. I made it deeper this time.